Hey everyone, Daniel here, and welcome to a very special edition of the Seven Wonders blog and video series. Tonight is a very special night. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, whether you follow astrology or astronomy. Tonight is the Great Conjunction of 2020, and on the spiritual side of things, especially indigenous spirituality, this is a very significant event. So we consider this a changing of the ages, and we are literally passing out of an age from Pisces, which was Christ's time, basically, starting around that period. And now we are coming into the age of Aquarius. My dear friend, Linda Bird, is going to join us here in just a moment. Linda is the founder and director of Conscious Awakening in Sacramento, California, but we actually met in Austin back in 1998. And in fact, it was Linda who introduced me to the artist way. So this is really kind of a full circle coming back to the person who helped me get in touch with my spiritual life and some of the more greater aspects of how spirituality and science is now finally catching up. As you'll discover in this interview, and I don't want to waste a whole lot of time getting right to that. Let's see, what else do I need to say? You are going to see a marked downgrade in video quality and my haircut quality because we actually pre-recorded our conversation on the 15th, which was Tuesday of last week. So bear that in mind. I think the last thing that I want to point out is that this particular chapter of the Seven Wonders is the Seven Wonders of Compassion. Honestly, she is a master of compassion. My dear friend, Linda Bird, thank you so much for joining us. I want to acknowledge that as someone who does the healing of spiritual healing for a practice, for a life, that I know how valuable your time is right now. I know what you're doing. I know what you're going through because you are indeed a first responder of the spiritual crisis that we are in. And as we enter this chapter, which is the Seven Wonders of Compassion, my overarching lesson here is compassion to the compassionate first and foremost. And as I told you before we started recording, my compassion is with you now. And I thank you for not just taking the time to be with me today, but for all the time that you have been giving to help people who are literally falling apart right now, no matter their spiritual shape or dimension. Thank you for that. So I, again, as I was pointing out last week in chapter 6, we were talking about the Seven Wonders of Integrity and really piercing through our denial system and our preconceptions is such an excruciating thing to go through for all of us. But once we do that, it can literally send us into a kriya, which again is a Sanskrit word meaning spiritual emergency or surrender. And all of us are at that moment. And I think globally, we are at that moment. I think this entire global community is in a kriya, a spiritual emergency. And how this manifests on an individual level in our bodies. I pointed out that a friend of mine literally finally realized that she was working too long in a very toxic work environment for an impossible boss. And when she finally left, her body responded with a migraine. That is a kriya. That is your body backing up what you've just discovered about yourself. You've pierced your denial. Get it? You cannot work for a toxic person in a toxic work environment. You cannot stay in an abusive relationship. You cannot help an alcoholic sibling who needs to help themselves. And I can understand the attributes of Aquarius, from my perspective personally, because I've always aspired to those qualities, and I really do think that that has helped me get from the rock bottom of drug and alcohol addiction to where I am today. And those energies are now available to all of us. This is the beautiful thing of winter. This is when the temperature's cool. And this is another beautiful thing of Aquarius, is that we have the ability to cool things down. That doesn't mean that we're unemotional. It means that our emotions stop pouring in like a torrent of water, and they turn to snow and fall, so that we can put our attention on our emotions as a beautiful snowflake, and we can see the intelligence of that emotion without, and taking the charge away from it, and intuiting the message of that, and recognizing the beauty of those emotions. That is enlightenment. And again, this is my experience as an Aquarian, and I have not the qualifications of my guest, which I am going to turn it over to you now, Linda, and let you, an expert, help us into it. What our steps are at this moment in time.
Well, thank you, Danny. You've always been very precious to my heart. And part of it, it could be because I have Aquarius rising, and I also have Venus in Aquarius. So I have, and my partner is a mega Aquarian. So
indeed he is.
So I have a, yes. So I have a predilection to love Aquarians. But
yeah,
what's going on now astrologically is this is Aquarian time. Not quite exactly yet. I mean, we're very, very close. Today's the 15th. So we're just 3 days away before Saturn moves into Aquarius from being in Capricorn for 2.5 years. So we're going into some major energy shifts, which many people are saying, yes. So that's happening. And on the 19th, Jupiter will go into Aquarius. And then they meet at the Grand Conjunction or Great Conjunction on the 21st. So we're moving into an entirely new age. We've spent 200 years where these planets have met in Earth signs. But now we're moving into air signs. Aquarius will be starting this. And the Aquarian energy the air signs will last for another almost 200 years. Some people say it's 180. But anyway, a long time we're going into the air signs, and Aquarius is leading the way. And so not only is this Aquarian energy coming in on a personal level, but also a global level. And so what we've been experiencing, what you shared about your friend, she's not alone. I mean, so many people, this past year has all been about it was a Pluto, Saturn conjunction on January 12th of last year. Mm-hmm. They actually came together, very rare conjunction. And then Jupiter was there as well as another asteroid series. And so we had this grand conjunction, a great big conjunction of major players. Now, Pluto is all about transformation. Mm-hmm. And Saturn is about our connection to the government and structures and rules and all those kinds of things. And banking, traditional things is Saturn ruled. So astrologers could see this coming from many years out, going, oh my gosh, 2020 is going to be a big deal, because we knew there was going to be a breakdown in structure in order for the Pluto, the Phoenix, to rise. It's all about having to kind of, depending on the individual situation. But if we're going the wrong way, it's going to just tear it all down, and for the Phoenix to come up from it. So ultimately, Pluto means well. I personally think that the planets are conscious and that they have our best interest at heart. In fact, I had an experience with them through Stargate, and I won't go into the whole thing, but experience the energies from each of them, and they love us, which sounds kind of strange, but everything's
Not
energy.
to me.
Oh, good.
I love my refrigerator, right? You know, so
Good. Yeah,
I have
that's
a
right.
thing with it.
Yeah, it's because we're all energy, and we're, in the quantum
Indeed.
field, we're now aware through quantum physics that everything's energy. And so we
Indeed.
are indeed all connected. We're all connected to each other on this planet, but also to the heavenly bodies all influence us because we're all one, right?
Indeed.
So this past year has been not only the breakdown of the structures around us, but individually, we've been asked to become more conscious, more. I did this thing for something called the Astrology Hub, and they had us do slides, and I had a picture of a merry-go-round, and then a roller coaster, and then the unity. And so this is kind of where we're going. It's like we stepped off the merry-go-round, because all of us were just kind of going around and around because this is what we've always done. This is how we've been programmed. And when the pandemic came in, and we had to step off the merry-go-round and kind of stay home. I mean, it was like the universe said, now you go home, you go to your room, and you think about what you're doing, like a parent does to a child. And so,
yes,
it was. And as you go home and you think about, and it was about, reprioritizing or looking at our lives and determining what really is important. And so if we're at a job that doesn't resonate with our values and resonate with who we are and why we took a body and what we came in to contribute, then it's a problem, and
exactly.
and I worked with so many people who have had breakdowns. They just said, I was doing this and I couldn't do it anymore. And they went home and went to bed.
Yeah.
It was this breakdown of their energy field, their emotional sense of self. I mean, it's been a very traumatic year for many, many people. And it's for the good, which is hard to say when people are suffering, but it's ultimately because I think that everything happens for a reason, and ultimately it's for the higher good. And even though we may not be able to feel that while we're in the midst of the suffering, then it's, if you can hold on to that, there's a higher purpose, there's a bigger picture that we don't see in this whole pandemic and all the things going on, that that we're moving into a greater place. So back to your question about Aquarius, is that this Aquarian energy is bringing in this more unified, more out of the box, more collaborative. It's not, the Earth Age was all about materialism and status and things like that, whereas the Aquarian Age is more about humanity and us working together. And recently, recently I talked to a Gene Keys teacher, and he said that could he imagine that everybody is coming from their heart, or they're being their authentic selves, and that we don't need government or policing or anything else, because we recognize we're all connected to each other. I mean, you're me, I'm everybody. And so that we treat everybody from an equally loving place, and we're not competing, we're not thinking that we're separate, because we're not. And we're moving into a much greater place of community. It could be literal community.
Indeed.
But community of the global scale, that we're all, and I think that things like the internet are kind of it's like a symbol of that we're all connected. I'm doing a meditation on Sunday and it's with a lady from South Africa who's now living in England, but she's going to be there with a lady from Sweden, and I'll be in California. And a bunch of us, or 4 of us, are holding the space for people who will be on the internet all over the world.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think that I
That,
like it.
and I thank you for that as well, because as you know, over the past several years, I have gone into technology and I have
Right.
done, a lot of research about,
Mm-hmm.
what the evils, and I do mean evils, of
Mm-hmm. It
social
can.
media.
Yes. Oh,
And
yes.
but again, it's consciousness, isn't it? It's
It
we
is.
do have a decision on what kind of content we want to access.
Mm-hmm.
And I always lead from kind of a Star Trek mentality, in that, the message of that entire series of shows that focus around Star Trek is that technology is not and space is not the final frontier. Human potential is,
Oh,
and it's what we
exactly.
do with our technology that
Mm-hmm.
matters.
Exactly.
And you know, uh, and back to your point about science. Frankly, science is doing a much better job of proving magic than spirituality is doing these days. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, literally the latest uh, scientific information of the right up to the minute is saying that all evidence is now saying that the universe is infinite, and scientists hate that word because it means not only everything is possible but probable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything is probable.
Well,
And
yeah. Greg Braden, I just listened to a webinar on with Greg Braden, and he said that we literally live in a matrix, and that I'm an astrologer, so the astrological chart, it shows the potential of what all the choices are, and this is where consciousness comes in,
mm-hmm,
because we can take any of those different matrix paths, but when you're conscious, you consciously choose to take the higher road.
right.
So, and everything has a lower vibration, a higher vibration. We were talking about this earlier with Aquarian energy, because Aquarian energy, yes, there is a danger of becoming so technological that robots take over the world, that we become, totally unnecessary in a way, you know.
Well,
Yeah, but the,
my
go
my
ahead.
saving thing about the age of Aquarius is I'm just like, everybody relax. It's the age of Oprah. I mean, she is literally, as far as I'm concerned, in many ways the most compassionate public figure of our time.
Mm-hmm.
At the
I
same
agree.
time, she will not suffer fools.
Mm-hmm.
That's Aquarian energy. Accountability. Clean up organize your energy, clean up
Mm-hmm.
your own mess.
Mm-hmm. So some people, it could be martyr victim, I mean, because it's the lower frequency of Pisces. But the prayer it's called the responsibility prayer. And like I say, it's from the Course in Miracles. And it's so powerful. It's, I am responsible for what I see. Because we all have paradigms, and we have beliefs, which is another thing that's being churned up now. Look at your old beliefs. So it's like we look at our paradigms and we sort for our beliefs. And so we choose what we see. In fact, you have witnesses at accidents. Everybody saw something different, because everything comes through our own filter. And so the thing is, I am responsible for what I see, and I choose the feelings I experience. So people can try to make us mad, but ultimately it's our choice. So I choose my feelings, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve, because so many people are going through life trying to still please their parents, even if they're, but that's kind of, it's a part of
I
the human
know.
game.
I
And so,
know it is.
yeah, but it's like I decide on what I want to achieve. And then
Indeed.
everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked, which is hard to swallow.
Indeed it is.
However, however, most of the time, when something has happened to us, when we look back at it with time, we think, thank God,
Yes.
because we're going in the wrong way. And so it's like, this is where spirit comes in, or our higher self, whatever you want to call it. but that there's a part of us that's guiding us. And when we're off on the wrong track, it'll have to pick us up and put us down someplace else, which if you're really attached to over here, then that's painful. But when we're in a place of surrender, if things are going on, pay attention, listen, and then be good with where you've been put down. And so when something happens to us, even though we don't understand it in the moment, it's so helpful to remember this prayer that I ask for and receive as I have asked. So even though I, Linda, wouldn't have asked for this, but to know that there's a higher self that called it in, and that in time I will know. And what that does is it takes us out of the 3D victim-y energy, and it puts us into the observer role, where we can be more watching what happened and not be attached to the emotion of what it is, which
Indeed.
is so powerful. I mean, I think
It really is.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of diligent work to achieve that as well. You know, that was another point that I made last week in chapter 6, is that when we allow the emotional charge of our past to be the invader of our present, but also the dictator of our future, you know, that's, you know, we've got to understand that the past is concrete. We can't erase the past. We can erase the emotional charge the past has, because when we do that, our energy then is organized into the present, and then we can see that the future is a beautiful blank page that we ourselves, with our feelings, what we want to experience in the future, we can actually make that happen.
Oh, exactly. Because we're in a quantum field. And so, and
Right.
it's even more powerful right now because the energy is different. And so it's so important to really be aware of our thoughts. But the other thing is, the past in some ways is concrete, in some ways it's not. And so sometimes I have people go back and look at things that were like parents. I mean, you know, everybody's got parents, and they typically were not perfect, you know, the way we wanted them to be. They were not the loving, you know, come here, you know, let me stroke your hair kind of parents for the most part. And they were also the perfect parents for us, for our experience in this lifetime. And so when we go back and look at some of the things that we're complaining about, and we say, so how has that served me? How is that way I was treated? How has that made me who I am today?
Right.
And so it's like reframing the past from victim to teacher, that they all of our past taught us, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, you know, this is very true. There's some, you know, depending on the level of trauma individually that someone has suffered. I mean, there is new science that is very much supporting the fact that post-traumatic stress disorder can be brought on by childhood trauma.
Oh yes.
Even prenatal trauma.
Definitely. Even past life trauma.
Indeed. You know, and it, you know, in our physical bodies, it manifests as neurological damage. But the beautiful thing about our bodies is that, unlike when our electricity or in our wiring in our house short circuits and fries, we have to replace that wiring physically. We're organic beings with really good therapy. We can repair our nerves, and spiritually do vision quest with our current self, with our knowing that we made it, and literally taking ourselves back into time and encompassing that into, you know, our 8-year-old self, and say, hey, guess what? I've got you, and you're gonna make it. And there's nothing that you know, none of this is going to hurt you anymore, because, you know, return rage to sender, you're fine.
Yes, and that's really, I think that, Danny, that's really, really critical work right now. And
I
there's
do too.
I've been doing Stargate, working with the Stargate, and we work in the quantum field. And in the quantum field, there is no time or space. So we can actually go back and find those inner children that were abandoned or traumatized in some horrendous way, and go back and reclaim them, and to actually integrate their energies and literally take them home with you, and
Yeah.
and give them a happy childhood. I mean, it's never too late to live a happy childhood, right? So it's like
Right.
you can, it's, I think that what I'm finding is that where we are in our evolution, then we are given a lot of new tools for healing. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
energy psychology,
Mm-hmm.
that does tremendous work with PTSD, actually.
Exactly.
Something called tapping, because you're right, we're organic and the body is constantly changing, it's constantly reproducing itself. Every cell is constantly in motion. So we have all these things happening. And so, okay. So Gary Craig, who developed the EFT, he gave his manual away for free. You can go online, download it for
Yeah.
free. So,
Yeah.
that's so unusual before in the material world. But we have that. We have another thing called heart
I
assisted
want to be sure to
therapy.
put a link to that actually in the blog. I just want to say that we will, in fact, for
Yeah.
everyone watching. But please continue.
Yeah. Well, so these are all self-help things,
Right.
or people like me can help people with it, because I don't need to get a license to do that particular thing, because the universe gave it to us for free. So with heart assisted therapy, Dr. John Deepolt, who came with that, I personally think it's an evolution from EFT, is another thing that is easy to do, very compassionate, and it's like taking an elevator down through the psyche to get to a place where we can see, okay, here is the origin of this issue. And sometimes it does take us into past lives.
You bet.
And it's not only there's several things that make us, but part of it is we also inherit the genetic traumas from our ancestry.
Yeah.
That's
Of course, that's something I'm well aware of, being in Santa Fe, New Mexico. With so many indigenous people here, and commingling not always peacefully. When the Spanish arrived, that has reverberated to this day.
And it lives in our genetic makeup, or our auric field, however you want to look at it. But so the healing is not only for this lifetime, but for in fact, I've been working with people who are doing ancestral healing, because it's that in Native Americans, they say that we not only heal for ourselves, but we heal for 7 generations before us, and 7 generations after. Because it's all energy. We're in a quantum soup, So the work you're doing, Denny, is so important, to help people. It is, and I honor you for that. Because it's we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. Yes. And so astrologically, we look at 2020 and we go, oh my God. You look at what was going on in our zeitgeist. It's not just in the US, it's all over the world.
Indeed it is.
And what was going, as within, so without. So it's what we see going on outside of us is also going on inside of us. We're all having our own personal lockdown, you might say. And so it's an opportunity to do our own work, to let go of our victim stories, to let go of the lower frequencies, the shame, blame, guilt game, and because those are low frequencies. And as we let go of these things, we naturally buoy up, is how I think about it. We buoy up to love, because we are love. We're all love. But when we took a body, we started our victim story and we took on all this other stuff. And so we're in the process.
Have you read mine? It's fabulous. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I mean, sometimes well, my victim story is better than yours. That's how we can be. So we're moving into another place, and people are feeling the call in their hearts to really move into another place. And I was just recording a thing for this event coming up called Simply Happy Woman. It's technically for women, but the whole thing was, my topic was your inner knowing, you know, getting in touch with your inner knowing and trusting your inner knowing.
Yeah.
Because so many times we feel like we're all on our own. You know, I'm by myself, my little body, and it's had this trauma and so forth, which is natural to think that way. And
Of course it is.
But where we're moving into is to recognize that we are never alone.
Of course.
We have higher self. And you were talking about Star Trek earlier, and I work with people, you know, it's like we call in angels and everything. And I remind them, you know, they're here. You just have to ask. They can't interfere. It's like the Stargate thing, you know, the command. What was that? Oh, I just lost it. Supreme Command or something like that.
What is it?
You know, they had the Supreme. They couldn't interfere. In
Star Trek, the Prime Directive.
Prime Directive. That's exactly
right.
Like we're living in a Prime Directive, so that all the angels and guides and supporters are around us, and they can't interfere unless we ask.
Right.
But when you ask, then the miracles start.
It's remarkable.
It is.
It's remarkable.
It is. So we're not alone.
Indeed, we're not. And thank you for reminding me of that too, because it's absolutely the truth. And one of the things that I'm focusing on in terms of knowing the truth is knowing what truth feels like in our bodies. Because indeed, this is, you know, our bodies, our nervous systems, you know, we carry a huge charge of current in our spinal cords. And we do generate a magnetic, we have a positive, negative pull. We generate a magnetic field around us, just as the planet generates a magnetic field around it that operates as a source of protection, you know, from, you know, mass ejections from the sun, you know, but sometimes those ejections get through the protection of the planet. And because we operate the same way, we have the same kind of energy structure, really, our energy field gets worn down too.
Right. And another thing is to know that whatever our energy field is, we'll attract more of that. And so, as they say, where your focus is or focus goes, energy flows. I think that's what it is. Where our thoughts go, energy flows. And so, so when we can come to a place of trusting, I suppose, if there's no physical reason to be in a trusting place, but to focus on trusting that, one of the a great tool to get out of that place of I'm all alone and everything sucks is gratitude. You know, think of something to be grateful for. There's always something to be grateful for. And when you move into that gratitude energy field, you attract more things to be grateful for.
Right.
You know, but if you think, you know, life is, you know, just a bowl of, you know, bad stuff, then you attract more of that, because that's your belief system.
Right.
You know? So when you move into the gratitude space, then you'll be surprised at how quickly your life can turn around, because now your frequency is gratitude, and so you attract from that frequency. You know, the whole thing is all energy. And so when we are in a joyful place, it's contagious, right? When you go in and you know how you have somebody come into a room and it just kind of lights up, and then you have somebody come in the room and it's kind of like it's better when they leave. So
I used to be that guy. You know,
I mean, we've all been both sides, I think, at some points in our lives, you know. And the point is that we can choose. Every moment we could choose which one we want to be.
Right.
So that's where, you know, we're in a very empowered place that's coming in. And I think the thing with the Aquarian energy coming in, as I was starting to say earlier, is that there can be a danger in becoming, you know, all head or all technology, because it's all about technology. But the other piece is the human heart and the human human consciousness that will, I think, save us from becoming automatons, you know,
Yeah.
and to not have feelings and not be in a place of compassion,
Right.
and so forth.
Right.
So it's, you know, the thing is with this grand conjunction or great conjunction, it's at 0 degrees Aries. I mean, 0 degrees Aquarius. So it's the very beginning. The sun will be at 0 degrees Capricorn. The moon will be at 0 degrees Aries. This is like a brand new beginning.
Wow.
And we can choose what our beginning, our next chapter will be through
Wow.
conscious choice. You know, it's. I mean, some people say it's the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Could be. I was trying to think about this because in the astrology community, there's a big debate about when the Aquarian age starts, and I was thinking about, because you know the song, you know, the beginning of the age of Aquarius, or you know that song was back in the '60s, right? But that could have been toward the beginning of the age, because we're talking about a 26,000-year cycle. So
Right.
on one day, it doesn't change. And so I
Right.
thought, how do I explain this, or how do I think about this in a different way? And I used to do these vision quests on Mount Shasta. And I would get up before, you know, just at the when the light just started to come, and I'd just sit there and I'd watch the mountain. I'd watch it, and you could see it, the sun start to rise. You know, you could see it coming, and then the sun, you know, all of a sudden you see the beginning of the sun. And I kind of think that might be what this day is, December 21st, winter solstice, because we've had this, like, we can see the sun coming, you know, just like when you're watching a sunrise. And then, I don't know, but it feels like this winter solstice could be when the sun breaks through. I don't know exactly, but that's how it feels to me.
It feels that way to me as well.
Excellent, because and some people are saying it is the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and it could be just certainly a major point in this process as we move from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. And the Piscean age, they're saying also that this conjunction is like, could have been the Star of Bethlehem.
I know.
And so
I've been researching that for years.
Yeah, so that started the Christianity, right? The age of Christianity.
Yes.
So do we take this Christ consciousness and upgrade it into this other you know, Aquarian age, where we are literally, you know, aware that we live as one, that we are one.
Yes.
You know?
And please take to heart, you know, at least the messages of you know, the scriptures, that, because frankly, you know, I was baptized and raised Catholic, you know, and I cannot stand to see a crucifix.
No.
Because I can't stand it. I don't, you know, talk about compassion to the compassionate first. That's where my compassion is. Let's not have this next age end with the most compassionate of us winding up on a cross.
Right. Yes.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have been turned off because of the dogma of a church. And I think we're in a place, I don't know, this is wishful thinking perhaps, but that we're recognizing that all religions started with love. All of them, at the seed of all of them, love and compassion.
Yes.
And then humanity got in touch, got a hold of it, and started to make, we're better than you, and started all the dogma stuff that came in and distorted what the original intent was of every religion.
Indeed.
You know,
Indeed.
so
and I think, you know, what this moment, if anything, can provide for us is an opportunity to let spirituality grow and advance in knowledge and theory, just as we allow science to do the same thing. Now's the time to you know, yes, we need to grow spiritually. We you know, we know new things now. You know, when the teachings of Buddha were written, there were stars in the sky that had no names like they do today.
Mm-hmm.
We've been on this journey looking for compassion and enlightenment for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
For a very
Yes.
long time.
Yes.
And we have got to allow ourselves the compassion to let spirituality grow in knowledge and theory.
Yes, and I think we're I used to attend science and consciousness conferences, actually in Santa Fe. I went every year for many, many years. And
cool.
It was so interesting to have physicists and MDs and
Indeed.
shaman and
Yes.
and medicine people and all
Exactly.
mixed together. And it was so
I know.
interesting because this is global. And there was always some like theme that had gotten into our consciousness. And
Right.
so we tend to think that the medical people are the all-knowing, but they're asking the shaman
Exactly.
how they did it. So it's like we don't have to learn from our heads if we are learn from the wisdom of our hearts.
Yes.
Because our hearts know. Just because we read someplace doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's like what science was doing was proving things that we've known all along.
Yes.
That the shaman have known all along, the natives have known all along. And
Right.
so that it's for us, I tell my clients, don't feel like you have to get a degree in something else, and da da da. It's like just access the Google in the sky through your heart,
Good. Well put.
just connect and you'll know.
Yeah.
It's
This is again because Aquarius is air energy. Air by very nature is not as dense as the other elements, say Earth, for example.
Yes.
That's not to say that it doesn't have a lot of substance. Air rules intellect, but it's also special knowledge. It's knowledge beyond words.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we allow ourselves to fly, to glide in that, rather than question it and try to form words of it, which will weigh us down. That is not that. Air is like you said, it's a special knowledge. It's knowing things that can't be taught. They have to be felt and experienced.
Right.
So
yeah, words are very limiting, and they change the energy of things. So I used to go to this workshop I was part of the team for many years, and as soon as you label something, you change it.
Yes.
If you're just outside and you're just enjoying, so even music, you're just enjoying it, and then you think, "What's the name of that song?" Then you pop into your head, and you kind of lose the essence of it because now you're thinking about it. It's just being in the essence of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up too. I mean, I think the same way of when I have a beautiful bird experience in my backyard, rather than reaching for the camera and taking its picture, which is actually offensive in a lot of traditions here in Santa Fe. Don't photograph dances. Don't photograph a spiritual guide that insults them. I get that. It's the experience is meant to be felt and experienced, not captured.
Right. Yeah.
Two-dimensionalized.
Right. Be in the moment and enjoy it.
Indeed. Well, with that, Linda, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this episode. I want to remind everyone you can find Linda at, let me make sure I have your website correct. It's consciousawakeningcoach.com. And Linda, is there another way that people can actually get a hold of you?
My email is fullofgratitude@comcast.net. And I also have the website connected to personalgrowthconsultant.com, which might be easier to remember.
Great. All right. Again, I'll have that stuff on the blog post. Linda Bird, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Danny.
All right. That wraps Chapter 8, The 7 Wonders of Compassion. I do want to say that the lesson plan and all of the homework assignments are actually in the blog post for this. I'm not going to take any more time to walk through those. Just go to the blog post through there. Even though it is winter solstice and a lot of different traditions are going to be celebrating over the next couple of weeks, you still have homework, so you don't get off the hook. I would encourage you to get right to that tonight, because there's a beautiful meditation, and as well in the digital witch box section, I put together a great playlist that kind of works as a modern witchcraft ritual to kind of welcome in the energies of Aquarius using music. So I would invite you to do that tonight. The actual, what I'm calling the Star of Enlightenment, for the new age of Aquarius, which was known as the Star of Bethlehem in our previous Turning of Ages. The best viewing for that is just as the sun is going down. You'll be able to see it in the southwest here in the United States. That's probably the same over in Europe as well. Again, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event, so don't miss it. And thank you very much for tuning in. Join me again on another special night, which is going to be the last full moon of 2020 on December 29th. It's Tuesday, December 29th for Chapter 8, The 7 Wonders of Connection. Until then, once again, my very special thanks to our special guest, Linda Bird. Very special thanks to Jillian Brash and Ralph Lopez for editing the blog. And to all of you, welcome to the Age of Aquarius. Be kind to yourself. Baby steps and kindness to everyone moving forward. And I'll see you at the rainbow's edge.